So, hi guys, this is Flo, and today we have Angela with us. Hi, Angela.
Hi, Flo.
Where are you right now?
I am near Washington, D.C.
Near Washington, D.C. Wonderful. We are actually 6 hours ahead, far
Hmm.
from each other. I
Yeah.
think thanks a lot for being with us on Sunday evening. In your case, noon.
Sunday afternoon.
Sunday afternoon? Wonderful.
Yeah.
Angela is one of the first, no, she is the first researcher who did a thesis, PhD on polymaths. So, after all of your research, Angela, do we finally exist?
Oh, absolutely. Polymaths definitely exist. And yeah, my dissertation was the first, and as far as I know, still the only doctoral dissertation that studied modern day polymaths. I looked in the literature. There's not much literature on polymathy as a phenomenon. There's definitely literature about one polymath at a time, usually from history, or there's literature also, an openness to experience, on intrapersonal diversity, on self-directed learning. So there's literature on lots of other things that pertain to the subject. So yeah, somehow, despite the lack of literature on polymath, I mean, there's probably less than 10 scholars who have really written about it. And it's crazy. It's crazy that that's the case. But because I considered other areas and because I was also interviewing people and gathering more data, I was able to, create this 300-page document somehow.
Which is unbelievable. So what you understood was that polymathy is more single individuals than groups. So there is no real understanding of polymaths as a group out there?
Exactly. That study had never been done. Nobody had ever looked at a group of polymathic people or group of polymaths to find common trends and themes among them. And another thing that made this study different is that it was in modern day. It wasn't looking at dead people. And also the fact that it was roughly half male and half female is another differentiator, because a lot of the literature on polymaths is on men.
Mm-hmm.
So it was different. It was, the whole point of a doctoral dissertation is to add to the literature in a way that makes sense, to fill a gap. And there was just a gaping hole in the literature. It wasn't too hard to find a way to contribute when it comes to polymathy studies, because there's just not much there. But, personally, I wanted, another thing that made my study different as well is that I wasn't studying eminent creative geniuses like only the Leonardo da Vinci level. I was studying highly accomplished people in both arts and sciences. So they had depth with their accomplishment, they had breadth with the variety and versatility of their achievements. Mm-hmm. But there were not celebrity types per se. They weren't those, Leonardo-like. They were real people. So what I was studying basically was modern day, male and female, the kind of people you could know in real life. And part of why I did that is because I want this to be accessible to real people, because I believe all of us have polymathic potential if we allow ourselves that, even though we live in an age of specialization where that's sort of pressured out of us a lot. And so, I've heard from so many people all across the world over these past couple of years since I released my dissertation about how meaningful it was to see their stories in the pages of my dissertation. I've had people say it made them cry. I've had people say it saved their lives. I mean, just to finally feel understood for, frankly, being a natural human. Like, this is, in my opinion, the natural way of being. It's just been kind of intimidated out of us because we're taught that to be expert, to be successful, we need to pick one thing and stick to it our whole lives. And it's just it's not natural, if you ask me, at least not for most people.
Mm-hmm. Many of us, and especially those who join for the first time in the verse, they are so enlightened. They are so delighted. No, delight is the wrong word. It's about they are become the moment they understand that there are others like them is so helpful. Is helpful understanding that they become themselves in this very moment. And I had this moment also a year ago, and seeing from this moment, looking back and seeing what you've been through all the time and understanding that you are not alone is such a fundamental break in your whole understanding. I think that's how coming out must be.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
People finally say, okay, that's how I am. Live with it or don't live with it. It's not my problem anymore because I can finally be me. Yeah. So when you understood that there are, okay, let's put aside those singular individuals who are super prominent or celebrities, what did you find about those who are in the midsection of polymathy?
Well, I had a number of different themes. Can I just say, before I go there, I want to say real quick, just in response to what you just shared, is that, someone used the word relief recently, that she was relieved to feel understood. Yeah, that was the word she used.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And then, as you know, I have a Facebook group, and I've got polymathsplace.com. And I've got a YouTube channel called Polymaths Place. And I really am trying to bring awareness to this so people don't feel so alone. Yeah, because that's what actually that leads right into what I found in my dissertation with some of my themes and findings, is that, I think if there was one bottom line I found from my interviews in particular, setting aside the literature, but just looking at the data I uncovered through my interviews, is that there are pros and cons of not being a specialist, of being polymathic in this age of specialization. And yeah, absolutely. One of the things I heard from the interviewees was it can feel like a very lonely journey because most people don't know the word. Most people don't have any sort of community around this phenomenon. And also, to some extent, just the way we're built is, to some extent, it's going to be a singular journey no matter what you do, because you will never find another person just like you, with your exact combination of experiences. But you can find people who have similar experiences with being polymathic or putty-like. I'll use some of your guys' lingo over there. So another thing I found, I'm trying to think what's most interesting of the findings. Imposter syndrome, of course, came up.
Oh yeah,
came
goodness.
Up. Yeah, didn't expect that actually. I don't know. I just didn't think of that. But like half or more than half of the people I interviewed brought up imposter syndrome. Finances and family are definitely, especially in childhood, the amount of resources, financial resources a young child has can impact how their polymathy shows up. But the thing that's interesting is that it's not just people with a lot of financial resources that become polymathic, which might be easy to assume, like, oh, you need money to explore your interests, to take classes, to travel.
Yeah.
But what I found out is that okay, that's true for some people, but for other people, lack of resources forced them to become polymathic. It was the lack of resources that forced them to have to figure things out on their own because they couldn't outsource. Couldn't outsource. So, and a lot of those people, reading, library access to, that's another way that people without a lot of financial resources learned a lot in a self-directed way. Family, like functional households, dysfunctional households, either way, someone could become polymathic, which might be surprising. You might think, oh, you need a supportive upbringing as a child to really explore your capacities and interests and learn. But for some people, polymathy was kind of their safety. It became a safety net. It became a way to get out of a bad situation by becoming more capable. So I think those were some of the more interesting findings that we didn't really know before. We didn't know that, polymaths come from poor and rich families and dysfunctional and functional households. We didn't know that they experience a lot of imposter syndrome. But those were some of the things that were unearthed in my research.
That's highly interesting because, are we unicorns? It's highly interesting because when you say that the upbringing or the family background, it doesn't really matter. There's one big question: is it innate? Are we born as polymaths? I don't know. What's your feeling after all this research?
Yeah, that was one of the questions I asked them, actually, to see what their sense was of their own polymathy. Was it nature or nurture? The vast majority of them felt it was both. You had to have some innate capability, though, to be able to learn. Like, there has to be some nature there. Polymath, the word means many learnings. So you have to be good at learning if you're going to become polymathic. You have to be able to learn. But the environment matters too. And, one of the interesting things, I try to remember this in my own personal life. I remember there were two different women I interviewed, and they each shared very different stories about how the people in their environment impacted their pursuit of polymathy or not. One of them, I called her Trinity. That was her alias in my dissertation. Trinity was thinking about double majoring in college. And I think it was engineering and art. She met with an academic advisor, and the advisor was like, well, you're female. Engineering is like a really male dominated field. Just do art. Just stick with art, simplify your life. And she took that advice. She listened to that person's opinion about how she should limit herself. There was another woman, Wendy, I called her, who was a perfectionist, like never got anything except A's, was really talented with math from a very young age, and also music, but math was her thing. And so she decided to major in math in undergrad. And on one of her tests, she got a B, which was devastating to her. And she decided in a huff, I am not going to major in math. I'm going to go change my major right now. I got a B. And she went to her academic advisor and was trying to get him to sign the form. And he asked why. And she explained, I got to be, I just can't do it. I got to be. And he said, no, that is not enough of a reason to drop a major. I'm not going to approve this. And so she stuck with her major. But you can see with Trinity and with Wendy, how the nurture, the influence of people around you can impact your path. And that's why it is so important to be aware of that and remember and see through a lens. Whenever someone's trying to direct how you live your life, remember, these are just their opinions. I have to decide. I have to decide how I'm going to live my life. And I think there is tremendous value in owning your puttiness or your polyness. If you recognize it as an integral part of your identity, then when people try to sway you away from that, you recognize that for what it is. Yeah. And you can say, oh, no, this is part of who I am, and I'm going to follow who I am. It's so important to be who you really are. Yeah. It's so important.
That's right, because when I think back, most of the time in my life, things became really weird and didn't work out well when I was listening too much to other people, because this moment of insecurity, you finally end with where shall I go now? What shall I do now? If you're surrounded by a culture that says you can't choose, you do this or that, not both. And then of course you're dependent on the opinion of someone else, because what's the best way now? And as they don't understand how you feel in this moment, then you go with the best and the most easiest way or the most safest way. But then finally it doesn't become the most best way for yourself. It's highly interesting. So when did you find out for yourself that you might be a Renaissance woman?
Yes, that's a great question. When I was 18, I moved from the San Francisco Bay Area to Los Angeles to go to college at the University of Southern California. And I just, as luck had it, I signed up for a freshman seminar. That's what they called this short, it met once a week for maybe 2 hours. And it was a for fun class, no grades, just, you're a freshman. It's a good way to meet some people, have some fun, low pressure. And I took this freshman seminar called Self-Expression and the Arts. And what the professor, he was actually a theater professor, Eric Truls, he created this competition. He called it the Culture Vulture competition.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole idea was each week when we met, we would come and share, have a list prepared and share what we had tried new in that past week. And I had gone to Christian schools up until I was 18. Preschool till I was 18, I'd gone to Christian schools, and I'd really lived in quite a bubble. And then here I was in Los Angeles. I had a car. I was living I was living alone, not with my family. I had, apartment mates, but I was so excited to just explore LA and just try new things. I think that semester I went skydiving and I tried sushi for the first time, and I got my tongue pierced because someone dared me to pierce something. And, and I didn't want to scar my face. Didn't get a tattoo, but I had so much fun exploring and trying things. Not that made me a polymath, but it was polymathic in nature. It was being open to experiences and trying and having breadth. And so the seed was planted that semester. And ever since then, I have just had this tremendous hunger to to have the human experience, to live life in its fullest, not just deeply, but broadly and deeply. So I really give Professor Truls credit for that. I will say too, the way I grew up, my mother's a Cuban immigrant. My dad was a white American, born in the States guy. I was born in Berkeley, and I grew up in the very liberal San Francisco Bay Area, but going to Christian schools. I was a girly girl in a household of mostly males. I grew up in a household with 3 generations. So I was the youngest, and everyone there was older than me. And just little things like that. I learned to, just by virtue of the situation I was born into, I learned to embrace the parts of me that weren't supposed to go together. The duality of my identity was just there from the start because of the things I just shared, the immigrant mother, the American dad, liberal, conservative swirl I was in with school and with the environment, with the different age groups. And I could go on and on with other examples, but I just felt very comfortable with being things that people think don't go together just from a young age.
That's interesting, because in this phase where you just tried things and found, okay, wow, what's out there? There's life is so big and so wonderful and so colorful, and what all the things I can try and taste and do. When was the moment? Because I think every one of us has this moment where you actually feel and understand that your surrounding is overwhelmed by you, or doesn't feel quite well anymore with you, because they somehow feel you might be different because of doing so much stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, I definitely felt like whenever I would explain about my personhood to people, I would let it out in little bits, and people would be surprised too. Like, I was a White House intern, and I worked for multiple presidents, and I interned for a California governor. And I also, have tried almost every adventure sport. I rode motorcycles for many years. Like, those things aren't supposed to go together. If you have a doctorate, you're not supposed to ride motorcycles, right? So yeah. I think I just had this sense of presenting versions of myself, to people, and letting out the surprise elements in little bits as I felt comfortable. And that is absolutely something I heard from the people I interviewed as well, that there's this kind of self-censorship that you have to do. Hiding. Yeah. Because if you reveal too much, it's going to be too hard for people to understand, apparently, which is really unfortunate. I hope we get to a time and place eventually where we can just share all the parts of ourselves and not have to be concerned about how it will appear to somebody who thinks those things aren't supposed to go together. Because anything can go together, right?
Absolutely,
anything can go together.
But
you make up your own combination.
Yeah, absolutely. But people are trained from the very first day of their life. You have to be in a box, and you can have maximal, 3 or 5 boxes. As, for instance, for me, as a father, as a university assistant, as a worker, or as a friend, and that's it. But you can't come up with, now he's a trained teacher, a trained journalist, or now he writes books, or now he's painting again, and what? He wrote an album with dances for piano. I think people, it's too much for them, and that's the funny thing, because they have no problem to zap around in the telly until their mind blows out. So that's no problem. They can follow 5 to 6 to 7 Netflix shows, but if they meet one person in life, in real, and this person has in one ego, in one person, in one persona, as they call it, all these bits and pieces they find on Netflix, it's overwhelming. They don't get it anymore. How can this be? How could this be? Okay, yeah. So from this moment or after the moment, there's always this big question, and I think we will do an episode on this one day. Partners. Partners, you have to find your soulmate. Otherwise, this won't work for many polymaths. For me, and I tell this often, Manuela, she's a specialist. She's so deep into details. Knocking right now is Valentina. And she's so deep in details that I can live my generalism around her. I don't ask, I don't know, since I was a boy, since I was 3, 4, 5, one of the first memories I have was that I never understood how people can define or can talk about certain things. I always saw the relations between things. And it's still the same when I'm looking at a framework for the thesis. Everyone is talking, this is this block and that block, and it fits together. And I don't see the blocks. I just see the lines and the intertwining between. I see this network. Yeah. So partners, who are your partners in life who understand that Angela is in between?
Gosh. Well, I will say, you made some comments earlier, and it relates to the question you just asked as well. I think for a lot of people who unleash themselves out of the box and live impressive, fulfilling lives, and who are capable and competent and get things done, part of it is it can come across as threatening to people who don't do that, or bragging or boasting or exaggerating. And so another part of the reason why we tend to hold back with some people is because we don't want to make them feel bad, right? In comparison, if they're not living their lives quite as fully. And so that's another element too. What's interesting to speaking of partners. So several of my participants brought up their love lives, and what I heard from them is it's not so easy. It probably makes it harder to find the right partner, because who you are as a polymathic person may shift over time. So finding somebody who will kind of go with the flow as you wear different hats and as your identity shifts and morphs over time, it takes someone who's going to be flexible to go with that. And like we said, it can be difficult to just reveal who you are because that censorship, the hiding, is so common among polymaths, so as to not overwhelm the other person. When you're dating, that's even worse because it's a brand new person. You're trying to impress them. What do you share? What do you not share? How do you not overwhelm them? The whole point is to get to know each other when you're dating, but navigating when to tell what about your personhood can be a challenge. Yeah. And finding, like you said, Florian, like with your wife, she's a specialist. She takes care of the tree and you take care of you see the forest. That works for you guys, like that yin and yang sort of fit. But others might want a partner who has more of the same interests, more of the same approaches or whatever. So figuring out, do you want someone to kind of complement you, or do you want someone more similar? And it can be hard. It can be hard to find someone similar, because of a unique combination we all have. So I guess what I'll say is it's not easy being polymathic and finding your soulmate. It's probably hard enough finding a soulmate just in general. But as for me personally, who do I like to have in my atmosphere? I mean, I like to have supportive people in my atmosphere, non-judgmental people in my atmosphere. So I tend to invite and keep those sorts of people around, people who let me be myself.
Yeah. That's it. That's a serious point. People who let you be yourself and not only allow you to be yourself, because that's also a difference. Yeah. Okay, that's how interesting. So let's turn the perspective a bit and let's say from a broader picture, let's have a look at a broader picture. In your professional life, is there also this up and down, this polymathy reflected, mirrored in your CV?
Yeah, I mean, I do the thing that so many polymaths do, where I don't include everything on my CV. I have whole jobs I don't even put, because here's how my career started. My first real job I ever had was in the nonprofit industry. I worked at a shelter for battered women and children when I was in undergrad and grad school. Then I worked for the federal government, where I still work. I've worked in the federal government for about 14 years. I also am part of a family real estate business, a for-profit business. And so I've had nonprofit experience, government experience, for-profit experience. I wear, hats in real estate, hats in the federal government, training and development, leadership development. That's where I work now. I also wear a hat as a scholar, as a researcher, an author, sort of, that kind of stuff. So if I actually listed everything I've done and I do on my CV, oh yeah, it would be such a zigzag path. But I censor, just like so many other people do. We kind of have to in this age of specialization. We have, if we want to fit in an organization that's looking for specialists, we have to pretend to some extent. Yeah. And I'm hoping that someday that won't be the case, where it will be safe enough where we can actually bring our full selves and all our talent and all our experiences, all our capacities, all our interests, all our hopes for future learning, even to work and just be honest.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's what I'd like to see happen. But gosh darn it, this age of specialization, we seem pretty stuck in that. We got to change that, guys. I'm trying. I'm writing a book, actually. I'm writing a book
now. Okay.
Yeah. Polymaths and the Business Organization.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. Businesses really, if they can tap into this and welcome it and support it, it'd be good for the polymathic people on their teams. And it could be really smart for their success as well. So I'm literally writing a book on this very thing.
That's super perfect, because what we are actually talking most of the time in the verse is entrepreneurs, business. How can we fit in as polymaths in a world where the saying goes, the tinier the niche, the taller the tech you have on your back. Generalists, after all, are those who bring everything together, who can make sense, who can work as facilitators, as catalysts, as connectors, as bridge builders between specialists.
Exactly.
From your point of view and from your research, generalists in business settings, where might they fit in?
Yes.
Exact human resources. Because somehow, I don't know, here in Austria, when I say, okay, but generalists, put them in human resources. Yeah, of course, because it's a secondary level of sustaining the whole system. But it's like putting them away. So what do you think?
Yeah, I've come up with something I'm calling the 2 types framework, which basically says at a high level in any business organization, there are essentially 2 types of positions. The types of positions that are routine, stable, you could basically keep doing things tomorrow like you did yesterday throughout the years. Okay, maybe something like accounting.
Okay, yeah.
Would be fairly routine like that. And then there are other jobs, maybe like in IT, where if you don't keep learning, you're not going to keep up with the environment. Right. And because there are VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous problems, wicked problems, harsh learning environments. And so if you buy that there tend to be basically 2 general types of positions, those more trending towards stability and those trending towards complexity, then necessarily you probably would want different types of professionals in those 2 slots. And of course, the narrow specialist is very well suited to that stable routine job. And the kind of VUCA, wicked, harsh, complex environment is more suited to polymaths who have lots of tools in their toolkit, who like to learn, who like to sink their teeth into problems. And if you get that match wrong, if you put a narrow specialist into the VUCA, wicked, harsh, complex environment, or if you put a polymathic person into a very narrow specialist role, not good. So just seeing that alone, like if businesses could just get that, it could very much help their effectiveness when it comes to attracting talent, selecting talent appropriately, developing, retaining talent. So that's the kind of thing I'm writing about. Businesses right now almost exclusively just say everybody needs to be a specialist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is that those people who are polymathic realize how a narrow specialist job that squishes them in a box sucks the life out of their soul sometimes. And so what they end up doing a lot of times is they end up leaving organizations who don't understand them, don't appreciate them, don't leverage them, don't unleash them.
Mm-hmm.
And they become entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
That's what they do. So they can use their full skill set and their talent.
That's highly interesting because it fits. When I think back, when I started out in the hospital service, in the hospital job environment, I started out at an orthopedic station, and there the things I had to do, all the tasks, they were very broad. So there was everything from everywhere, doing a bit, and this was fun. It was fun because when I entered the station in the morning, I knew there are so many different things to do. Mm-hmm. This is fun. I'm motivated. That's cool. Yeah. Then I was somehow leveled up into the administration, and I was sitting there in an office, north-faced office with no sun. I was just staring out of the window, and all I had to do was writing 7 to 8 mails per day. That's it.
Oh my gosh.
Everyone else was like, "Oh, that's unbelievable. That's the best job in the world." And for me, it was like hell. I was just sitting there, clicking around. Because I was not allowed to leave the office. I was just there writing 7 to 8 mails. That was it. For real good money, but for worth nothing. Mm-hmm. So it was one of those, how do we call it, the bullshit jobs? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And after I left, I met this one assistant of the human resource department, and they said it was necessary to bring you to the administration, but when you were there, we had absolutely no idea what to do with you. So, and then I said, okay, funny thing, huh? Why did you ask me? I never had a meeting or talk about this, about my development or what I can bring in. You just put me there because what? And then he said, well, because the place was open and we had no one else. And it's absurd, and that's how the system thinks. I don't think that people or the leadership level thinks. They just see once a month in the balanced scorecard. Okay, we need someone for this place. Who's next in line? Oh, this guy. Okay, set him there. Give him the money, and then it's okay. And keep him motivated with, I don't know, some nice gifts at Easter or Christmas. And finally, when I left, I had so much things to do that I didn't know where to start first. So this approach is good. You mentioned this two. How did you call it? Two.
I call it the 2 types framework. At least that's what I'm calling it now. That there are 2 types of positions, and there are generally 2 types of people, more or less, to fit into them, and that you got to get that match right. I will say too, regarding your story, thank you for sharing that about that job where you were underutilized. It's very frustrating to an intelligent, capable, polymathic person to have a job like that. It doesn't challenge them. It doesn't use their capacities. It feels like they're wasting their time, and your time is your life.
Yeah, absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. And you can pay me really a hell of money, but time is lost. I can regain money everywhere I want.
Yeah.
And everywhere I want. But I think that many of our listeners and many of the viewers out there also have this feeling now and then that they, how can I put it best? For me, it was like this, sitting in a meeting, and I know that everyone from the leadership level down were just managers in a system to produce the product health. And no one of them understood that health is not a product. Health is a system in itself. You can't say, okay, come in. Oh, that's the problem. Let's drop in some pills for the next 5 years and then you're healthy because you just have a psychological problem. No, it isn't, because after 3 months, another thing develops that pro or cons this health development process. So that's not a product. And then I was sitting there and just listening to those guys with all those, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years of experience. And I said, and I just thought, you're wrong. You didn't get the basics right. How can you, even if you don't understand how things work, how do you have the hybris to decide? Or you don't even ask someone because you know it, because you're so, I mean, you can do 10 years, you can do the wrong thing for 10 years as well. So
yeah, my guess is that they were narrow specialists with their blinders on.
I have one algorithm and I will do it until the end of my day. Terminator program.
There really are downsides, to specialization. There's also benefits too. I would never say do away with all specialists. Like we need some people who focus deeply. The problem is the dominant ideology has said everybody should be a specialist, and that really limits what we collectively can accomplish because there are things we won't see. There are things we won't research. There are questions we won't even ask if we don't have polymathic generalists involved and partnering with specialists in strategic ways.
Yeah. So I wondered, are there, I don't know, 2 or 3 things people could become aware of in the first place before they start looking for a job? Because I think many of us have the problem, okay, I know that I'm a polymath. I know where my strengths and my weaknesses are. But not how do I hide it, because then we have the same problem as we started out with. But are there some points where say, be aware of or think through XYZ before you go and
First thing I would say is just, in my opinion, for a polymath in particular, a job is not going to suit all of their needs. It's not going to meet all of their needs. Any job. It's highly unlikely you would find a job that would meet all your needs for fulfillment and learning and stimulation forever. I mean, especially if you have lots of interests. So keep in mind, a job is part of your identity. It's part of how you contribute. It's part of how you earn money and, keep a roof over your head. But it doesn't have to be your whole life. Polymathy, for many people, it shows up in their vocation in part, and also their avocations or their hobbies. So have a life outside of work, if you value learning and meeting and exploring and experiencing, then remember, a job is part of that, but not all of it. The other thing is, keep in mind, you've got this marathon called life, and you may have multiple jobs over the course of your life, or maybe more than multiple, you may have many different jobs. And so there may be seasons for things as opposed to having to find the perfect job that lasts you forever. For polymath, that's highly unlikely to feel good to them anyway, because most people want change and variety and newness. That's something that appeals to polymathic people very much. Yeah, I mean, I guess that would be my advice, is that when you're on the hunt for a job, keep in mind it doesn't have to fulfill all your needs. Keep in mind you're going to have many jobs over the course of your life. Have a life outside of work. Yeah, and just try to find things that light you up, that bring you joy, rather than suck the life out of your soul, And if you're in a job that's doing that to you, well, free yourself, find a way out. It may take some time and effort, but, our jobs really are a big part of our experiences of being alive. We spend 8 hours a day on average, right? For most people, 40 hours a week. Maybe it's less in Europe. I think that the French or the Italian, some of you in Europe, you take a month off in the summer. You guys do it well. Americans, we got to catch up with that approach, don't we? Anyway, in America, we work a lot on average. We work long hours, and there's some myth, I think, especially in the United States, that the more you work, the more competent you are. The more you work, the more respectable you are. And there's very little discussion about working smartly, rather than just long.
Quantity.
Yes, quantity of work more important than quality, and I totally disagree with that approach. Contribution.
Oh yeah.
Being strategic in how you contribute is much more important than just doing a humdrum, crappy job that took you forever to do. Like, how is that useful? You're incentivized to work slow and stupidly in the system that says if you work long hours, that we respect that. So Yeah, I think, at the end of the day, being this way, it's like freeing yourself from the expectations and the old narratives. It's being a critical thinker about the narratives we're sold about what success means. It's being brave to forge your own path and curious and learning and soaking up the fullness of life in all its breadth and variety. Like, who could disagree with these things? These are the ways that you live a good life, an authentic life. And if you don't live this way, like if you follow the narrative that says be a specialist, focus on work, who cares if you have hobbies, just do what we say, we'll pay you, you'll be fine. Be a good girl, be a good boy. Just be the cog in the wheel. Fast forward, imagine you're old on your deathbed reflecting on your life. I would not want to look back at my life and feel as if I just shrunk myself and shriveled myself.
Yeah.
Because of the myths that society tells, which are BS, basically. So there's a rebelliousness in being this way. There's a real rebelliousness under the surface. Even though we may be professional and competent and doing things under the surface, there's a little bit of a like, F you, society, I'm going to live by my own rules. And I love that.
That's wonderful. That's really, really wonderful, because it also it has this aspect of there is this concept of form follows function, and for us polymaths, it should be more like security follows freedom. Because the more freedom we have, the freer we live. The more we learn, the more safe, secure, whatever we are and we feel. And living in this self-built net of security, in this evolved, or I don't know how to put it, and maybe an evolution of security we are through. The more people you can show what you are able to do if you accept yourself with your freedom within your own security net. Is this easy? No, it isn't. But it's the job of a pioneering soul. And I think that's what we are, pioneering
soul. I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Freedom, that's another theme amongst polymath. Like they have chosen to free themselves. They have chosen in a way to give birth to themselves, to curate and write their own stories, which I think is a beautiful thing. If you ask me, doing just that is what we're meant to do, what we're here to do, one of the most important things you can do. I mean, what is the point if you just absorb society's directions and narrative? I mean, in a way, it's like becoming machine-like. Yeah. I'll take the program, I'll download it, and then I will be an automaton and I will enact it. Like, let's be human. Let's be distinctly human. Let's not download some software and just live out society's direction. No, let's be who we really are in smart, strategic, brave, curious ways. And freedom is, polymathy is a way of freeing yourself, in my view. For people for whom that is authentic and resonates, it is a way of freeing yourself. And if you feel this tendency to explore and be broad and learn and switch and change and be open, and if you feel that urge and you don't do it, you're not free. That is not freedom. That is fitting someone else's expectations, despite the fact that it takes away from your own fulfillment. That's not freedom.
Or to put it in the techno bubble of 21st century, don't be a coding line that has to be debugged.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, polymathy really, to me, it's a story about human potential in its fullest, most unique form. Oh, here's another thing that's interesting. Maybe this is too heady. I don't know, but I'll share it anyway. As far as I'm concerned, individuating and expressing your onlyness is part of what helps you and the collective evolve. In fact, there's a book called The Phenomenon of Man, where Teilhard studied the patterns of evolution in animals, plants, and he said that there are two fundamental patterns you see in the evolutionary process. One is increased individuation, increased becoming unique parts. At the same time, that you find increased cooperation. So it's like we're individuating, we're becoming more distinct, more multifaceted at the same time that multifacetedness allows us to make more connections and linkages. And this is exactly what polymaths do. They become more and more individuated, and they explore their onlyness at the same time that their multi-talented big toolkit allows, and this is what I heard from them, allows them to find common ground and connection with others more easily. It also allows them to see linkages, build bridges, synthesize the things you mentioned earlier, because they can see the whole forest rather than just one tree. So if you ask me, polymaths are moving humanity forward. They're evolving us. They are tapping into the evolutionary impulse to individuate and to cooperate in new and strategic ways. This is part of our evolution.
That's absolutely the most wonderful thing I ever heard on this whole topic.
Oh,
it is true and it feels right. And I learned for myself sentences that feel right are right.
Yeah,
absolutely
exactly.
Wonderful. Angela, thanks so much for this wonderful insight into the researchy clouds and fields of polymathy and your input. I say thank you. Maybe we can have you on the show another time when the book is on in the finishing line.
Perfect.
And you can tell us a little bit more about where we can find it, where we can read it then. And I would be delighted to have you on board once more.
Awesome. Thank you, Flo, so much for having me. It was a delight to chat with you, and I look forward to chatting with you more.
Angela, thanks a lot. See you and read you soon.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.